This is Jesus,
Heyo!
who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. While Jesus was on earth, he taught everyone about God's love. He healed many people from their sickness, performed many miracles like calming storms.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Would You Like to Continue? Today is a very special episode because, as you know, I started up a Patreon, and I've had some patrons vote on what are the future episodes going to look like. And one of the themes, or the, parable, the metaphor that they wanted us to dabble into is the theme of storms, right? The term storms. What comes to mind when you guys hear the word storms? Victoria, what comes to mind when you hear the word storms?
Well, we live in Florida, so it's like I think of rain, I think of thunder, I think of lightning, I think of hail.
Florida doesn't hail much, does it?
No, not really.
Oh, and by the way, everyone, I'm not doing this alone. I got my lovely wife here to do this episode with me. Last minute, I was like, hey, would you want to be a part of this? And she was like, yeah, sure. I was like, all right, bet. And now we're here in our closet.
That's so weird, right?
Yeah, don't worry. Hopefully we'll get a better studio down the line.
Humble beginnings,
right? All right, so you listed just characteristics of a storm. And Florida has some bipolar weather. For those of you who've ever lived in Florida, like you'll literally be standing, and to the left, beautiful Sunshine State, and then to the right, looks like a scene from Star Wars. Like it's just intense, crazy looking, dark.
Or like the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, the after tomorrow type stuff. 2012 was that. It's gonna be a new one called 2020. That one's gonna be even worse. But
we don't talk about 2020.
Yeah, 2020 sucks, but it's okay, cause But when I think of storms, I actually think about my dogs that I had growing up.
Yeah.
And so I had some Rottweilers, and one of the Rottweilers' name was Attila, for like Attila the Hun.
Attila.
Yeah. And so she was an American Rottweiler, so she didn't really have like a boxy blockhead. It was more like a little bit of a longer face. Very calm. She was a cool, calm collective. She looked like a bear. One of my best friends. Dog. I didn't realize my dogs were emotional support dogs until I didn't have them anymore, which kind of sucked. But that's a whole other story.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm still going to counseling for it. Taking it to the Lord. But anyways, so what happened was, when it would be thunderstorming outside, all you hear on my tile floor is some dog's paws just and then she'll start scratching on the door. And she kind of knew how to open some of the doors in the house, so she would be able to like get in. And I'm like, come, it's okay, Adela, just come here. And so she would be petrified because of the thunder and lightning, and she would just want to sleep down right next to me. So when I think of storms, I think of that kind of moment. Victoria, we talked a little bit about this before we recorded.
Yeah.
What were some things that people told you about storms, or like little childhood type of things?
Okay, so when I used to get scared, number one, I got brought back to when my mom, we lived in South Florida. You and I currently live in South Florida, but before my whole family lived in South Florida, and there was one time we were getting ready to go somewhere. But there was a really bad thunderstorm outside, and there was lightning, and it turned out lightning had hit a few houses down, and I freaked out. My brother and sister were freaking out, and my mom she laughed a little bit, and so she's like, let's just go in the closet, which is funny that we're in a closet right now. She goes, go in the closet so you guys can calm down. And then I said, for the Sunshine State, that's a lie, but whatever. But for me, I remember when I was a kid, people used to say, oh, when there's lightning outside, that's just God wanting to take a picture of you. And when there was thunder, it was always the angels and God were playing bowling in heaven.
I've heard the bowling one before, and then I don't know where I heard it, but when it rains, it's like God crying. And so,
I've heard of that too.
So it's interesting how people have their different little sayings or different ways to help people cope with storms, because storms can be intimidating. I find them to be fascinating. I just think they're cool. Lightning happens, I'm like, that's dope. That's awesome. I had a professor who was struck by lightning, and so hearing his story was crazy. I was like, this is insane.
You know what I just remembered?
What?
I remembered when you and I were like, I was really craving like from Sonic.
Oh my gosh.
It was like the blue slushy with the nerds inside, and I was like really craving this, and it was like a middle of like a hurricane outside, but there really wasn't. It was just a regular storm, but
A regular Florida storm.
a regular Florida storm, which could go from 0 to 100 real quick. But like Brandon and I, we went to we were walking to the car, and I didn't park where I would normally park because my parents were supposed to come down, but that's a whole other story in itself. But we were walking to the car, and no lie, lightning struck, I think like a block down, and I freaked out, and I didn't see Brandon around, and so he's like apparently running to the car, but I thought he was waiting underneath like the awning so that I could bring the car over.
Because we were on different sides of the parking lot as we walked towards it. Because there's a whole bunch of massive water puddles, so I'm trying to navigate through it. So apparently she looked back, didn't see me, thought I cowered out. And she's like, you know what, maybe I don't need this slushy.
Yeah, and so I started walking back. And I'm like, I'll just walk back upstairs and get into my nice little cozy apartment and just chill out for the rest of the night. And then I see Brandon, and he's like halfway to the car. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, from like safety, she's like, wait, he's not here. She sees me, and I look at her. I'm like, are you serious right now? Because I was very hesitant even leaving in the first place. I was like, come on, it's raining. We're chilling at home. Like, do we really got to go out? I was like, all right, whatever. So I was like, nah, you best believe I'm wet already out here. You come, we're doing this. And because she had the key to the car. So, like, I couldn't, like, unlock the car and sit in and wait for her. Nah, I was like, are you serious? Because I told her to leave before I did, like, move out of the awning. Because I know her. She's slower than me, no offense.
He's rude.
So I'm just like, all right, I'll catch up to her. And then it turns out we dodged each other. But you probably had you guys' own fair share of, like, funny storm stories and situations. My mom, oh my gosh, if I got wet, she will beat me.
In rain?
Because she was like, you're going to get sick. Da-da-da-da-da.
Oh.
That was something she would always tell me. Like, you get in the rain, you're going to get sick. You're in the rain, you're going to get sick. Don't do it. And there was times where it kind of happened. But it wasn't just because of the rain. I also lived in Colorado, so it would get cold with the rain and all that stuff. But whatever. Speaking of Colorado, I spent most of my childhood there. And growing up in church, like getting saved like around 7 years old, and my mom, family and stuff, I was going to church. One Christianese term that we would hear quite often was storms. We would hear terminology of storms, and storms referred to when something bad was happening in your life, when you just kind of you felt the pressure of things, you were kind of overwhelmed, you were a little bothered, or just things were really tough, right? So being in a financial storm, being in a situation that involved, I don't know, just like an illness or just life things happening, right? And I also thought about the song from Casting Crowns where they talk about praising you through the storm, and that was just kind of that song to help you get through those emotional, distressful, or just trying times. Moving to Florida and then going to South Florida for college, a term that I started hearing more often that was almost synonymous to storms was seasons. Which I think is funny, because Florida, I feel like we barely get any seasons. It's like summer, kind of summer, not summer, but still summer.
But sometimes our winters could get really, really cold.
In Central Florida, yeah.
Yeah.
In South Florida, negative. It's just cold rain.
Yes.
And so you would think the term seasons would be a term more up north, and the term storms would be one down here. I don't know. I don't follow Christian terms. I'm not, like, checking that out. But that's what we're going to talk about, actually. I believe that the word storm, or the phrase of storm, refers mostly to not so much of what happens on the outside, but how we choose to react to the things happening on the outside around us, right? So I want to talk about the emotional storms that rage within.
Yeah.
That is the topic of this conversation. We're going to talk about feelings. We're going to talk about not having feelings. We're going to talk about being overwhelmed, anxiety, distress. And so with that being said, Victoria, is there anything else you want to add on to that before we continue?
Nah, I'm excited.
Okay. So we have 5 senses. Most of us do. And that our senses take information from the world around us and tries to make sense of that information, right? Creatures of habit, and our body creates these patterns and learns so that we can just be more optimal, and we don't have to put a lot of energy into certain things, right? When you first were learning how to walk, it took maybe a lot of focus as a child, as a baby, trying to figure it out. But now you don't have to think twice about walking, you know? There are certain things that you learn that become habit and a reflex. So we create the psychological defenses to certain things and scenarios and interactions because we want to protect our hearts from getting hurt, right? Our senses, again, taking up information from the world and trying to make sense of it, can lead actually to us bottling up our emotions because we think we're, we think we're doing ourselves justice and we're protecting ourselves, but in reality we can be causing more hurt, right? There may be these lies of, you can't talk about this because you're going to get judged or shamed on. You can't talk to this person, your father, your mother, because they're just going to say these mean things about you or get mad at you. And some of these things may not be lies. Some of them actually may be like 90% true, 10% lie, and just, or a white lie. Like, it's just weird. But we still think these things, right? We try to make sense of things and we try to justify us behaving or not behaving a certain way. And so, with that being said, I want to talk about 4 types of thunderstorms. I did some research into storms prior to this. There's a single cell, which refers to like one storm, okay? And I believe the metaphor equivalent, right, towards what we're talking about would be a small emotional confusion and or distress. So a single cell will be you having just kind of a little bit of a moment where you're a little bit getting frustrated or flustered over one thing. One thing just kind of bothers you, right? Maybe you left your keys somewhere. Maybe you... Earlier today, Victoria accidentally locked the keys in the laundromat. But I was thinking about car keys, Victoria. I wasn't thinking about laundromat keys.
Good times.
Multi-cell, right? Which is multiple things are bothering you to create confusion and distress. And this is common. Multi-cell storms are actually common. And so I believe the same thing happens emotionally, right? You have pretty high patience for the day, but it's the little things that start like building up, that start frustrating you or start making you question things and get sad and kind of worked up. Another one is called squall line. A squall line is like a long trail of multiple storms that can go for like miles long. And so a squall line referring to emotional storms would be multiple things that are so knit tight, it seems as if they're one, and it transcends time. When followed, there's a trail. So it's multiple things that could be bothering you, and these things have been there since last week, last month. It's just a continuous issue, and it just blends together. And where you may blow up over a surface level situation or something small, right? Parents tend to do this to their kids. There's just so much going on. Kid does one thing, and then that kid unfortunately gets the wrath of the whole storm when they may not been the main cause for it. It was just all these things that build up. And then supercell, which is the breakdown anxiety attack. It is an intense storm, right? Almost basically a natural disaster. With that being said, Victoria, what do you believe are the more common storms emotionally that happen in your life? Again, they're single cell, so it's like one thing bothering you. Multi-cell, that's multiple things bothering you. Squall line, which is just multiple things that kind of mesh together to be this long thing that bothers you over a course of time. And then there's that breakdown anxiety attack type of moment.
Yeah, I think for me, and you know me very well, like I am someone that I tend to feel like there's a whole other podcast about this, but like I feel hard. And so it's just like one little thing won't get to me, because then like there was times like I've had harbored that in. So one of the biggest things for me is maybe like the supercell.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, it's just like I like to think of myself as someone that could take in a lot and just hold like I got this type of thing. But then I realize that it's more of like, no, you are currently breaking down. And I have seen that a lot in my life. And maybe just another thing is like it's maybe between No, it's the multi-cell one.
Okay.
So the multi-cell one, it's just, maybe it's things in like a current storm or season I'm in, and it's just like I feel like there's just like a little, like multiple things that are getting to me in a moment, and then I skip the squall line and go straight to like, what is it, the supercell?
Yeah.
And it's like, it really affects me.
Now I get you. What are some things that, the little things that build up, that work together to kind of emotionally destroy you?
Stupidness. Like, or just maybe just things like, currently I'm in this season of my life where God is just telling me to just find my rest in Him. Like, I'm in like a declutter process in my life and like things like that. And so I think beforehand I always had to find something to be busy with. I was constantly the type of person to go. And God's like, enough is enough. One of the biggest commandments in the Bible, well, yeah, out of the 10 commandments, one of them is like to keep the Sabbath and all these other things. Yeah, that wasn't in my life. I said, bump that. Like, I'll follow whatever other ones I need to follow. Sabbath, that's not me. So it's like I always try to find things to keep busy, but then I realized the busyness was actually wearing me down. And then when I get wear down, it's like my irritability for like other things that I normally would be able to tolerate just wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
No, I mean, that makes sense, especially growing up in the West, right? In America, it's all about the hustle. Everything's fast-paced. Our fast-paced video games, some people, they prefer to sit down through like a 1-hour film but can binge watch a show.
Yeah.
You know, it's just they need this constant, you know, especially with social media and the internet, right? We're scrolling. It's just getting so used to this, that you probably heard the term before, microwave generation.
Yeah.
And so we can get so caught up with that, right, that we miss out on resting.
Yeah.
Right? We can really just miss out on that. And you don't hear the word rest or Sabbath really be thrown around in the Western church versus in other cultures, right? And so, like, being consumed by your emotions is like being lost at sea. Another thing that comes to mind about storms is just a sea storm, right?
Yeah.
Just out there, things are going down. It can get chaotic. It can get crazy, right? And see, like, storms, they can come and they can ruin your plans. You have this plan of staying busy, but then you have this breakdown moment, and now the most basic tasks become the most trivial, correct?
Exactly.
And it's not just you. I've met people who've had that before. I know that, like, I try to be as self-aware as I can because I hate those moments. I've had those moments where I've blown up, and then now my strengths are being used to harm those around me.
Yeah.
There's actually, when I was doing my research, I thought it was really crazy that they said is storm causes, fires, which came to mind was you burn bridges.
Yeah.
If you blow up, if you have a supercell moment, right,
Yeah.
and there's people around you or family around you, you can burn bridges between you and your parents, you and your sibling, you and a close friend, a parent, a child, right? And then there's flash floods, right? And when I heard the flash flood and I saw it visually, what came to mind was a shared unwanted burden. You know, you're a person that feels a lot. And so when you may either empathize or sometimes even sympathize with someone's situation, you wear that burden instead of taking that burden, passing it on to God. Say, God, I pray for this person. God, I'm interceding for this person. Be with them, bring them comfort and peace. And instead you feel like you have to fix it.
Yeah.
And then the third thing was it destroys homes.
Yeah.
And automatically I thought of a term called family fire, right? Which is basically friendly fire. And it's when, again, parents blowing up on their kids blowing up on their parents. I know if I had my fair share of moments when I was living with my parents. I know there's situations like that in other people's homes that they'll go ahead and they'll experience situations like that. There's times where we've expressed family fire, you know, even though we're Christians, doesn't mean our marriage is perfect. But then again, we're not like just leaving it, like ignoring it, you know?
Exactly. Well, clean.
Yeah. So me and my wife, what happens is when we get in an argument, which is usually us trying to outdo each other, like we're trying to be there for the other person, and then one would try to compromise and the other one's like, no, all right, I'll compromise, and it's like this weird
tension of like, why won't you listen to my compromise, or why won't you accept
let me do this for you.
No, you let me do this for you.
And so we get mad and we start cleaning aggressively.
Yeah.
We're Spanish, so it makes sense, right?
I guess.
My mom, shout out to my mom. She would always have me take care of the dogs and clean the bathroom and dust my room on Saturdays, which I hated because I had my martial art trophies, and those things are so like weird to kind of get in and just like dust through. I was like, just throw this away. There's just plastic. And she's like, no. You know how parents are. Any memento that they can get of their kid being good, they hold on to it, even if it's a noodle arts and crafts.
My dad still has one of those, I think, that I made.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
But I get it.
He has a train.
A train? You made a noodle train?
No, it wasn't a noodle train. It was just a train. Like, it was like one of those like wood things that they would be like, oh yeah, can you paint this and everything like that. And I think it was around for Father's Day.
That's cool.
And so it's like we painted it, and then my dad still has it in the room.
Shout out to all the dads listening, and for those of you that your dads are still in your lives, show them some love. Show them some love.
Yeah.
Right? So emotional storms.
Yeah.
Right? Some people have more multi-cells occur inside. Remember, it's how you react to coming close, paying a bill, to stupid idiots on the road cutting you off, or just making poor decisions.
Florida drivers are the worst drivers.
Oh my gosh. It's frustrating. To just internal stuff. That bitterness that you choose to hold on to.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing is this, again, I feel like when you're consumed by your emotions, it's like being lost at sea in a storm. Your methods of navigation are ignored because it seems as if it's impossible to escape the storm. So you try to like wait it out. You know, whether you wait it out in your car, whether you wait it out just locked up in your room. And in this storm, you hear the howling of worried breaths circulating your mind. Your heart is soaked with fear as it begins to drown. You go through the stages of grief, grieving at your own demise. And I feel, unfortunately, some people don't get back from these moments, and it actually leads to suicide, right?
Yeah.
Emotions are a great friend, but a terrible leader. That's a quote I heard recently. And
I think Stephanie Gretzinger had said it. I could be wrong, but we heard it from a friend who heard it from, I think it was Stephanie Gretzinger that had said, you know, what you had just said.
Yeah. So again, emotions are a great friend, but a terrible leader. Emotions are necessary. God gave us emotions, and it's okay to feel, but you need to be strategic with your emotions, all right? With letting it guide you and direct you, okay? Storms are perfect for napping, right?
Amen.
Nap weather, which for some reason, Victoria, that's when she wants to get out the house, is when it's storming. She's broken. Pray for my wife.
Rude.
All right, Sonic was one instance. And then yesterday, I want to go to Target.
I did.
And it's raining out there like crazy, man.
It wasn't raining like
yes,
crazy.
It was.
It was just like
there's
a
massive flood
drip,
in
drip,
front
drip,
of...
drip, drip.
Okay, get out of here. But Jesus definitely knew that it was great for napping.
Someone's salty.
Not for... Yeah. Sorry, guys. You can't see what's going on in my head, but I thought back to a illustration Pastor Victoria did on Sunday where I ate a salty apple. It tastes like I tasted the Fort Lauderdale beach. Stupid.
It was for the children and the families. Just think about it. There was a student out there that was able to forgive somebody.
Yeah, I'm going to hunt that student down. I'm like, I ate a salty apple for God to just work in your life.
It's okay.
And it's worth it. I'll take it. The salty apple wasn't that bad. It was just weird. It was like...
It was the weirdest thing, though, when someone came, like, had told me afterwards, I actually put salt on my apples. I'm like, you do what? Yeah, but she's like, it's not a lot. But
yeah,
because like a little.
You poured. Like, you went all in, man. But anyways, moving forward. Emotional storms, right? I believe guys also suffer from emotional storms, even though it may seem to be like guys are not emotional or whatever. They just process emotions differently.
They do.
You know? And there's a lot of guys, which I don't think this defense isn't just solely for men, but there's a lot of guys that one of their ways to they hate emotional storms, and they find it that if they have an emotional storm, they're not a man. Because men are supposed to have it all together. So I think a defense they form is stonewalling to their own emotions. They create they put their emotions in that box, right? Because men think in boxes and put things to, separate things. But eventually that box starts leaking, and they can't find the source of their anger. Because men, I believe, are very angry creatures, because we're aggressive naturally. That's how God designed us.
Yeah.
But aggression isn't bad, It's just where are you putting that aggression and passion towards? To protecting your family, right? To being strategic in loving your family and trying to snuff out any lie of the enemy that's trying to bring division between you and your loved ones. And so we need to be careful, because sometimes we sign God at the bottom of a decision that we may make. I don't know how the quote goes. You probably know about like making decisions in like.
You never make. Okay, so there's literally. There is this whole blog post by a guy. His name is Carey Nieuwhof. If you don't know him, he's a phenomenal person who speaks about church ministry, leadership, and everything like that. And he has this blog post, and it says 5 things great leaders know about their emotions that others don't. And one of them, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what you were trying to say, is like, never let today's emotions drive out tomorrow's decisions.
Yeah, and that's more or less the same concept. I've heard it being worded slightly different, about like not making a permanent decision in like in a momentary situation or something like that. I'm butchering it. There's some probably intellectuals out there listening to this that can correct me. But
don't make permanent decisions off of temporary emotions.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. Thank you.
No problem. Big brain.
Emotional intelligence is key. You got to be self-aware. It's like you got to be a forecaster, right? A meteorologist for your own emotions. And the way you do that is by asking questions. Okay, how am I feeling? Not good, but okay, I'm feeling good, but I'm also slightly feeling angry. Okay, well, why am I angry? And then you start following that trail, and then you can uncover that root issue.
Yeah.
Maybe one way you can tell if you have unforgiveness in your heart is if you hear that person's name or you hear their voice, and then you start getting worked up, right? You start getting angry, or just kind of like you start getting just a little frustrated.
Yeah.
That's one way, because again, unforgiveness can be a crazy storm starter.
Yeah.
Right there.
It's like, man, when I hear the name Brandon, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that Brandon kid, man.
That Brandon kid
thinks he knows everything. What's wrong with him and his annoying Hispanic self? I'm joking.
Stupid curly hair.
Stupid big black hair. Anyways, but how can we tell whether it's God leading me or my emotions? Have you ever asked yourself that question?
Yeah. I ask that question a lot, especially with the person that I am.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm like, okay, God, how do I know it's you or if it's me? And I think I had heard this from somebody before. I don't know if it was you that had mentioned it or somebody else that mentioned it. Somebody mentioned it. And it said, I don't want to butcher this. Okay. They had said, when it's God telling you something, it's or feeling something, it's a command. But if it's the enemy saying it, it leads to a question. Like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Should I da-da-da? But with God, it's clear as day.
Yeah, I told you that, but it's because my nephew, shout out to Christopher Arellano, he was listening to a sermon, and they were talking about difference between bottling up your emotions and controlling them, and that's something he's trying to learn how to navigate in his life, which I believe a lot of us are always trying to figure that out, or should be. We should be figuring out how to control ourselves, right? And I was having just a good talk with him, and I mentioned to him about, hey, there's demons that could try to whisper thoughts in your head, and there's your flesh that can have certain desires or wants that turn into thoughts. And it's like, you gotta be able to distinguish when it's God trying to tell you something or these things, right? Demons can't read your mind, but they can speak some stuff into you.
Yeah.
And so he was like, oh wow. And when we followed up, he told me, Brandon, you're completely right. My mom was telling me something, and I heard this question Like, maybe you should say this. You should probably say that. And that's when I knew that that wasn't of God, because God was telling me, nope, stay quiet, shut up, you don't have to say anything, just listen. It was more of a command that was for his benefit, right?
Yeah.
And we need to do that. We need to hold up, going a little bit into apologetics, sorry. As Christians, our morality comes from the Word of God.
Yeah.
Attempting to be Christ-like, okay? Love God and love people, and being authentic and genuine about it, all right?
Yeah.
And if you're not a Christian, I ask you, where do you get your morals from? I'm not attacking you, just a genuine reflective question, because I tend to ask myself as a Christian many genuine and reflective questions, because I don't want to be A, living a lie, and B, I want to be a better human being. I hate stress. I hate hurting the people I love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm all about what God's about, most of the time, because I'm also human. And so, with that being said, we need to be strategic with asking these questions and reflect and be self-aware, so we can be more effective in loving people. Because you should, as a Christian, hold what you're doing to the measuring stick of the Bible. Is this biblical? What am I doing? Is this morally correct through the eyes of the Father? Because if it's not, I gotta test it.
Yeah.
I've had many conversations with teenagers where they will feel not convicted, condemned for worshiping. Thoughts come in their head like, oh, you don't really mean it, you don't really love God, da 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 da. And those people, they're phenomenal singers.
Yeah.
Have a beautiful voice, beautiful talent, and they're getting all these weird, nasty, aggressive thoughts that make them feel shameful.
Yeah.
And disgusted and conflicted. See, God's not a God of confusion, and that's why typically we don't associate storms with God. God will allow storms to occur in your life because he wants to teach you a lesson, or again, he wants to Romans 8:28 it, which is turning all things for the good for those who love God and to those who are called according to his purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Where he'll flip the script. So you got to be strategic and ask yourself, or even God, Lord, what is it that you're trying to teach me during this storm? Because that's what meteorologists do. They ask questions and they observe storms. Are you observing the storms in your life internally?
Yeah.
So that you can be a better human being, so that you can be a better Christian, so that you can love people better, so that you no longer have to be a slave to depression or anxiety.
Yeah.
Right?
I just think of like hurricane season. Like, as a meteorologist, their job is to literally track the path of the storm. Like, where is it going? Oh, there's this way and there's this way, and there's multiple different routes or paths that this storm could go. But we have to be the ones then we have to prepare. Like, okay, if the storm is coming this way, if it's coming towards me, which again, we are in hurricane season, it's been a hot mess. But like, it's just like, okay, what do I need to do to prepare for this storm?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I just think back to our life with God, and it's like, okay, God, I'm kind of seeing where this is going. I am seeing this path that I'm currently on, and it's not the path of you. I'm seeing this anger being built up. I'm seeing these emotions build up. Okay, so now it's time. The way that we prepare for a storm or a season in life is by going to the Word of God, is by praying, is by spending time with the Father. And so that's how us as Christians, as believers of Christ, need to guide our path so that we're derailed.
Yeah, and I like how you said that. How do we prep for the storm?
Yeah.
If you see these warning signs that you're about to blow up,
Yeah.
what are your precautions?
Yeah.
Right? I know one thing that we tend to do is when we're tired or groggy or hangry or upset, or we'll say, hey, I'm just tired, so I apologize if I come off snappy.
Exactly.
Because then I can make the proper adjustments to not take offense to you being hangry.
Exactly.
Or when I'm angry, and I say, hey, babe, can you pray for me? Right? Because you know that when I get angry, it's not a pretty sight, right?
Exactly.
I can be, and it could be, and you could take it personally, which is not personal.
Exactly.
It's not personal. Don't take some of these storms and these people's supercell events as a personal event.
Yeah.
They may say some destructive things, like rolling thunder and lightning, man. It just gets you good.
Yeah.
The person that you loved says something that that's very not pretty, it hurts more because betrayal never comes from enemies, you know?
Exactly.
So I get it. Like, I get,
it's knowing you as a person and knowing the other person as well. But if you don't know the other person doesn't tell you how they're feeling, or like they don't know their path as well, then you can't get upset about it.
yeah. And some of us attempt to fix it by being critical and logical, right?
Yeah.
And we must be careful that we don't overthink, because overthinking can become a storm all in its
All
own.
on its own.
And I think of a snowstorm for some people when they overthink, okay? Some snowstorms, right, that is cold, lacks empathy and compassion, and it's all result-oriented, no relationship goals in sight. So, again, like I mentioned, and this is something I found common in guys, but it's not just for guys, where they just get apathetic. There's no sympathy, there's no empathy, there's no compassion, and they're just blank. You know, or some people, they get that way because then they're depressed. It's not that they're sad, they're just numb, right? But again, I said, I get it, because love is risky. Betrayal never comes from your enemies. It hurts more when a loved one comes against you, and when you're already wounded, the hurt is even greater. Like, if you ever been sore after a workout, and someone starts touching that spot that you're sore at,
You just want to punch them in the face.
yeah, right? And it hurts more. They did not do, it's little pressure, but because they're touching a wound, it hurts that much more. And so parents, if you're a parent and you're listening, pay attention to some wounds that your child may have, and be careful that you're not pouring salt on the wound, that you're not putting more pressure on it. And not saying their disrespectful behavior is justified, but it could be understandable, and through understanding comes unity. And anyone else that's listening, with your friends, your family, your coworkers, the same concept, man. Try to understand where they're coming from so you can be more strategic in the way you love them, serve them, help them out, so that in some way you can at least ease the pain.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want someone to ease the pain for you?
Yeah.
So vice versa. So I have one more question: is how do you address the storm? Where do you go to vent? Where do you go to just have that downdraft where it starts pouring?
So for me, I go introvert mode, kind of, which could also be very dangerous if you're not spending your introvert time in the productive way. For me, like when it comes down to introvert time, it's like, all right, I'm listening to worship music. I am praying. I am reading a Christian development book as to how to be a better person. Like, but yeah, like for me, it's like, for people that meet me, like, or have known me for a long time, they're like, there's no way you're an introvert. I'm an introvert. And I, like, regroup just by being to myself and letting I'm just chill.
And sometimes I can forget that, so I'll be playing video games and I'll peek over like, "Are you good?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm chilling." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, like he's just like, "Are you good? Are you you sure you're good?" I'm like, "I'm good." There's times I feel like saying, because I used to ask Brandon that all the time. I'm like, "Are you okay?" "Yes, Victoria, I'm okay." "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm okay." "Are you okay?" If you keep asking me I'm okay, then I won't be okay. But it's like, for me, it's just making sure like I go into introvert mode. Or if like I'm really like battling, like, and I'm feeling frustrated or defeated or whatever the case may be, I'll call my mom. I love my mom. My mom's my best friend. Do we argue a lot? Yes. Do we get under each other's skin? Yes. Is there things that she tells me that annoy the heck out of me? Yes. But I love my mom, and my mom is definitely one of those people. And like, she'll vent to me a lot. Like, she'll just be like, I can't deal with this person, this person, this person. I'm like, tell me more, Felicia. Her name's not Felicia. Her name is Linda, but I call her Felicia. And then when she's mad at me, when her storms are getting crazy, I'll be like, listen, Linda, listen. And so shout out to that little kid that did that. And then like my mom will be like, she'll just laugh and she can't be angry anymore. And she'll just run away. Like, not run away, but she'll be like, get out of my face. Or whatever the case may be. But yeah, like, you just have to, again, like, I sound like a broken record. Like, you just need to find an outlet.
And that outlet, in search of one, could be a journey.
Exactly.
But be strategic. We talked about how we quoted this person, we heard this person say this and that person, and it's because we're trying to be students. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can always learn something, right? Knowledge is important.
Leaders are readers.
Yeah, so just be strategic in what you surround yourself with. Again, I was talking to one of my nephews, and they were like, I'm frustrated that I'm so easily influenced. I said, then change the things that surround you. Change the things, take control of the things that influence you. So are you listening to a sermon, a podcast, a book, right? What are you surrounding yourself with to better yourself as a, as a human being, as a man, as a woman, as a father, as a son, as a brother? See, we need a downdraft, a way to vent and let out our emotions in a healthy manner so we can grow. If we swell up, it can be a problem. If we blow up or erupt with heavy showers, high winds, lightning, thunder, we can cause much more damage, right, to those around us. It's okay to be passionate in your venting, all right? It's okay. I'm just like that. But be strategic in how you vent. Don't vent online, in public. Vent to God, in your journal, in a private place. Sometimes it's okay for you to just shout and scream into a pillow. Have a punching bag. Divert that anger, that energy, that outlet in a strategic, safe manner, right? Journaling has helped many people, right? There's times where I got really frustrated and I just need to vent. So I will vent to some of my close friends, and they understand me well enough that they don't take it the wrong way, or they don't turn that into gossip, right? Shout out to Caleb. And then another thing is just do journaling, or I type in my notes all the time. So I'll write a whole thing out, and then after I let it all out, I'll delete it, So I pray for every person that's listening that you will find a creative, strategic, healthy outlet for you to vent, to let out, to let those storms run rampant in a safe environment where you won't be burning bridges, right? Where you won't be having any family fire, no flash floods, where you feel like you're just being a burden to other people. I pray that God will bring comfort and peace your way, genuinely, because again, it's tough. It is. Anxiety's a real thing. Depression's a real thing. Being numb. Everyone's going through different storms or different battles. And so that is just our prayer.
And we're not saying, like, if you're feeling these emotions, it's a bad thing. It's just finding a way to get yourself out of that. Like, again, and like, for me, it's simple, like, for me to say, because of the life I've walked through and have me finding Jesus. Like, Jesus is that answer for me. I think of when, again, like, going back to the napping thing, he slept throughout a whole entire storm. And then when disciples were emotional and fearful in those moments, and they went and they woke up Jesus from his nap, Jesus said, shush, shush, to the storm. He said, shush, shush. And it was calm, and everything came to pass. And it's like, in the moments that you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're in a Category 5 hurricane, it feels like, it's knowing, okay, God, you are in control. So, yeah,
God is sovereign, and you can lean on his sovereignty. And in leaning on that sovereignty, you definitely can feel this peace come over you. All right. So, with that being said, hopefully every single person listening will have the energy, the motivation, the inspiration to simply continue. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Yeah. I was going to call you Pastor Victoria.
There's been many times I wanted to say Pastor Brandon, but I'm like, no, Victoria, you're not going to do that.
Because we have a Zoom call there with the students.
I know. So then I have to turn on the
pastor hat statement.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
But anyways.
Pastor Babe.
All right, Pastor Babe. We love you guys. Hope and pray for the best. Have a great day. We're here for you if you want to talk. And yeah, God bless.
Adios.